Hi, and welcome to this week's edition of More TV. In this week's Did You Know segment, finally some good news for Albuquerque home buyers, home sellers, lenders, and realtors. FHA is easing their guidelines with some preferred mortgage lenders. Luckily, my company is one of those preferred lenders. As you may or may not know, last year FHA said no more credit scores below 640. Well, this put a ton of first-time home buyers out of the market. I feel bad that I had to deny several couples in the last 6 months that I felt would make their payments, but their scores just weren't good enough. Well, FHA has finally come around to my way of thinking. So as of tomorrow, I will be able to make FHA loans available to borrowers with scores as low as 620. This is not signaling a return to the lackadaisical days of the early to mid 2000s, but it is a small step in helping housing to lead the way out of this recession the country is in. And I think that housing is the only way to lead us out of this recession. Now, there's some fine print to go with the lower scores being acceptable. Number one, their debt ratio could not exceed 45%. Number two, they must have at least 2 months house payments left over in reserve somewhere in the bank after closing. And number three, their payment cannot increase by more than 50%. So if they're paying $1,000 in rent, their new house payment can't be more than $1,500 if their score is below 640. And of course, the software must issue an approval rating. So if you've got somebody that may be borderline, have your clients call me today to check their scores, as now, as you know, is the time to buy. This week's loan of the week is the story of a relocation nightmare. Billy Joe and Bobby Sue. This is the story about Billy Joe and Bobby Sue. Anyway, they got transferred to Albuquerque with the Forest Service from Chicago. They flew out here, they picked a realtor, found a house, and got an offer accepted. They flew home, went to their local Chicago mortgage company and made application, giving the loan officer $500 for an appraisal and a copy of the contract. Well, after several weeks of the loan officer in Chicago ignoring the realtor's phone calls, and about 3 days before closing, the loan officer in Chicago finally said, "You know what, sorry, I just realized this property is in New Mexico and I don't have a license in New Mexico." Well, now I get a phone call, frantic. This property is supposed to close in a few days. Long story short, I'm able to solve the problem. But realtors, you may not know all the behind scenes that have gone on recently with licensing and other issues in the mortgage business. So I would advise you to insist that anyone relocating to New Mexico use a New Mexico lender to begin with. It will guarantee you less hassle in your transaction. So I hope you enjoyed this week's session. Until next time, I'm Wes Moore.